Hi COVID cooking fam, it's Mapo tofu tonight, and we've been working on a vegetarian recipe that we think might just be better than the original. And if you think that's impossible, exactly. It's Impossible Burger, the plant-based ground beef substitute. Now, whatever you think about this as a burger, and we don't think much of it as a substitute for a ground beef burger, in this recipe, it's really good. It gives you just what you want. And it makes it possible to make vegetarian Mapo tofu. The other ingredient you will absolutely need is chili bean sauce. You can't really make Mapo tofu without this. Fortunately, this is like the sauce that makes Mapo tofu, so it's pretty widely available in certainly in Asian markets, but also in other markets as well. Okay, let's look at the other ingredients and see how this comes together. Here are our ingredients, which I've set out before I measure them. Impossible Burger, which we're going to stir fry in quite a bit of oil, quarter cup of oil. We're going to put in 1 or 2 chilies to flavor the oil, spice it up a little bit. That's going to be the seasoning we use initially with the burger. Our aromatics are little garlic, ginger, and scallions. The garlic and ginger we are going to grate on a fine grater. These are going to be cooked really quickly and really are more or less kind of the sauce. For the sauce, we have the chili bean sauce. I mentioned before, this is the one thing that is irreplaceable because it has the chilies and the fermented beans. I'm also going to use a little bit of black bean garlic sauce to boost it up. This is the same brand in black bean garlic sauce. The thing to be careful about this one is this has a tremendous amount of salt. 1 tablespoon has over 1 gram of salt. So if we're using this, we're not going to use any soy sauce. We're not going to use any other salt in the cooking of the actual product because this is super salty and we're only going to use a little bit of it. This is another brand we have here in California, Dynasty brand. It's got much less salt, like 1/3 of the salt maybe. So if you want to back off the salt, you can use this. If you don't want to use either of these, that's fine. Substitute a tablespoon of soy sauce for these. Because this is really salty, we are going to use just a 1/4 cup of broth. Enough, that's just the minimum amount I think we need to get this wet enough. And I'm using vegetable bouillon because now this is a vegetarian recipe. Tablespoon of cooking wine. I don't buy separate cooking wine, I'm just going to use sherry. We have a teaspoon of cornstarch, that's just for the thickening. And then the magic ingredient is Sichuan peppercorns. These are the peppercorns that numb your tongue. They do not add much spice, but they add a numbing effect. If you don't like them, skip them and just use black pepper instead. That's what we're going to do. But these are the Sichuan peppercorns that give Mapo tofu that sensation of numbing your tongue. Some people also call it a sensation of licking a battery, which is maybe not such a nice way to put it. Anyway, we're going to skip these tonight and just use black pepper. And our last ingredient is our tofu. We're using silken tofu. That does not mean soft tofu. The silken is the texture. This texture is going to go great with the fried Impossible Burger. That's really what makes this dish sing. If you can't use silken tofu, if you can't find it, maybe medium. Do not use soft tofu. We're going to cut this into cubes, parboil it, and then put it in the wok at the end to fry. Silken tofu is the right texture. Don't get something too soft or those cubes are just going to fall apart. Okay, that's our ingredients. Now I'm going to portion these out, and you don't have to watch. And we're back. I'm almost done portioning. I've got a 1/4 cup of the cooking oil with my 1 chili pepper. You could 2 is fine if you like it a little more spicy. We're just going to use 1 today to make a relatively less spicy dish. This is half of the package, or 6 ounces of the Impossible Burger that I've pulled out. This is my 2 teaspoons of garlic and 2 teaspoons of ginger. I grated them on the microplane. That's what I call 2 teaspoons anyway. That might be a little generous. I've started to cut up my scallions. I've cut the white parts, which we're going to use separately. Those are definitely going in the dish. I've combined 2 tablespoons of the chili bean sauce and a tablespoon of the black bean sauce in my cooking sherry. This is just a 1/4 cup of vegetable broth, and this is a teaspoon of cornstarch in a slurry. I'll have to mix that up. I've started to drain my tofu. So we're ready to cook. For the tofu, I'm going to parboil it. So I've got about that much water salted. A little bit. I'm going to bring that back up to the boil. And I'm going to turn on my wok. Start heating my wok a little bit. Meanwhile, I'm going to finish chopping these. I like to use these as a garnish. I don't know how I got in that habit. It's been a long time, but this is what I do to use these as a garnish. I just cut them on a severe bias because that's what I'm used to. We're not going to use these in the dish, but I'm going to save them and put them on the top. Okay, so now we have our tofu's a little bit drained. I'm going to cube up the tofu. I'm going to put down paper towel. Try to keep this as dry as possible. Whoop, and the tofu has broken already. Well, that's okay. So I want to cut this into about 3/4 inch cubes. So to do that, I'm going to take one horizontal slice, and your knife is just going to cut through this, I mean, so easily. So just take your time and be careful. Then I'd probably cut it in quarters this way. I don't know what I'm going to do about that bit at the end. I guess I'm just going to pretend it's not there. And then this way, let's see, if we're going to cut it there, probably there. That's about the size of chunks I like to use. Bite size is what we're going through there. Anyway, that requires almost no pressure with the knife, very easy. Let's see. Our water boiling. I'm just going to put this in very gently. The only real technique in all of this is be gentle with your tofu so it doesn't fall apart. All right, there we go. Now I will bring that back up to the boil, and I'm just going to boil it for a minute, and then drain it. Meanwhile, I'm gonna put my oil in the wok. It's pretty good. That's pretty close to smoking. We're going to have to cook this pepper a little while to release its flavor into the oil. That's just going to take a few minutes, and we'll know it's done because the pepper will turn black. And that will help get some chili flavor into the Impossible Burger, which it needs. Meanwhile, I'm going to just start arranging things, because when this goes, of course, it goes quickly. So it's going to be frying the Impossible Burger, adding the aromatics, adding the sauce. Once that's together, stock, thickener. These I'm going to throw in with the tofu. I don't like these fried. I like them cooked lightly, so I'm going to wait for the tofu for them. You can put it in differently. There are peppers getting a little black. That's pretty good. Let's see how our tofu is doing. We can take the pepper out, we can leave it in. I'm just going to leave it in out of habit. Okay, so this is, quite a bit of oil for only a little bit of Impossible Burger. We're just going to fry this very quickly and try to break it up when we get to it. But first, I'm going to turn this off and strain it. I guess I'm going to use a strainer. Let's see if I can. All right, so that's going to be ready to go. And let's cook this Impossible Burger. Alright, it's broken up nicely, it's browned a little bit. I'm just going to scrape it to the sides and to get the oil back. In the middle. I don't know how long that was, you can see. Now I'm going to get in my aromatics. Real quickly get them in the oil. Then once you've got all the, you can smell all the fragrances out and they're starting to cook, then we mix them back up. And next is our sauces and cooking wine. Okay, that's come together well. It is hot. Now I'm going to get it a little more liquid with a quarter cup of stock. If you're going to do this non-vegetarian style, it's a good place to use beef stock. Alright, that's up to temperature, so get the cornstarch in the slurry. We're just going to thicken this real quick. Just suspend some of that oil. Now gently with the tofu. And the scallions. And now you can turn the heat down in your wok. We're just going to fold this together. Okay. I'm going to take this out now because we're not going to eat that. There we go. That's what it should look like. It's got a little bit of, red colored oil from the chili paste, and we're going to taste this in a second, and I think it's going to be delicious. Some rice I made earlier. We're going to have for dinner. That silken tofu, it's like egg. It's delicate and pretty delicious. All right, here we go. Whew. I didn't make it any spicier. Not spicy. The texture of the silken tofu, which as you can see will fall apart. You want it to fall apart in your mouth. The combination of that and the kind of fried Impossible Burger, which is a completely different texture. It's a little chewy. And of course this now with all the sauces in it is super flavorful. Total contrast to the mild and squishy tofu. That's good. All right, there we go. It's Mapo Tofu Night vegetarian style. Enjoy. Before serving this, I did add a little black pepper, ground black pepper as my substitute for ground Sichuan peppercorns. So what it looks like with our garnish. This really is delicious. I hope you get a chance to try it. Just perfect. Great.